All right, we're back again, and hopefully you did well on your last test and you're ready to move on to bonding and nomenclature, which is naming compounds and things like that. So let's talk about first about what a bond is. If you think about the word bond, other than James Bond, this is a chemical bond. Okay. If you think about a bond in general, usually that means to you, you might have a bond with your friend or a bond with your family. And there are different kinds of bonds or links or connections. So this is the same thing with chemicals. There are different forces that hold two atoms together. Okay. In fact, there are three types specifically. So it could be an attraction between positive and negative ions, which remember an ion is the same element with a different number of electrons, or it could be an attraction between the nucleus of one atom and the electrons of another atom. Again, we're still looking at positive and negative, remember, because opposites attract, and the different ways that the electrons are moving basically creates three different types of bonds. So it all comes down to how are the electrons, okay? And we'll see this over the next couple of lectures in the next couple of days. What makes the three different types of bonds are how the electrons are responding. So the three types of bonds are called ionic bonds, covalent bonds, also known as molecular bonds, and metallic bonds. And you can probably figure out from the names what they have to do with. So we're going to delve right into the first one, which is the ionic bond. And it makes sense that ionic bonds are from ions. Ah, what an interesting thought. So let's recall an ion. You have two kinds. It's an atom that's either lost or gained electrons, or it could be a group of atoms that have a positive or negative charge. Remember, if you lose electrons, you become positive, or if you gain electrons, then you take on a negative charge because electrons are negative. And remember that a group of ions is called a polyatomic ion, which we all have memorized, right? Okay, make sure you have those polyatomic ions memorized. They're not going to go away, and this unit is when you're really, really, really going to need to know those polyatomic ions. Okay, so a couple other refreshers on definitions. A compound is two or more elements bonded together. And something that's important that you know about an ionic compound, so two or more ions that are put together, is that it's usually a solid at room temperature. And the reason for that is because they are very, very, very attracted to each other. Think way back to our states of matter discussions, and you'll probably remember that states of matter, the different states, are a result of the motion of the particles, right? So if they're not able to be pulled apart, they're not able to be turned into a liquid very easily. So ionic compounds are usually solids because it's difficult to get those ions to separate. They're really, really, really attracted to each other. Those positive and negative ions love to hang out with each other. So we know that ions are formed as a result of the loss or gain of electrons. Remember that if you lose electrons, what kind of charge do you take on? Hopefully you said a positive charge. Okay, and if an ion has a positive charge, it has a special name. It's not called a cation. Okay, it's called a cation. All right, and the opposite of a cation is called not an anion, a dog ion. Just kidding. In reality, it is the anion. Okay, so if you gain electrons, you take on a negative charge, then you have what's known as an anion. Okay, so positive charge is called a cation, negative charge is called an anion. It's not an anion. Okay, it's an anion. So cations are anything that's positive. Sodium plus 1, Mg2 plus, Al3 plus. Anions are negative, Cl minus and O2 minus. Okay, well, what ion, how do you know what that charge is going to be? This involves going back. It's always, this stuff just doesn't go away. Isn't it frustrating? Going back and remembering the octet rule, how to write electron configurations, and all that good stuff that you just take a test on. Okay, so remember, the octet rule says that everybody on the periodic table wants 8 valence electrons. Like who? Who has 8 valence electrons? Think about it. The noble gases. Okay, everybody wants to be like a noble gas. So chlorine's electron configuration, you can see right here is 1s2, 2s2, 2p6, 3s2, 3p5. This is the important part right here because these are the valence electrons. Remember, these are the outermost electrons. So how many are there? Keeping in mind that just because it's not, in other words, it's not just the outermost, okay? It's not just the last one labeled. All of these are in the third energy level. So in fact, we have 5 plus 2 makes a total of 7 valence electrons. And there's a little trick that goes along with this. You can look at what column it's in, okay? If it's in column 1 on the periodic table, it has 1 valence electron. Column 2 has 2. Column 13 right here has 3. 14 has 4, 15 has 5, 16 has 6, 17 has 7, and so on. Okay, we don't really pay any attention again to the transition metals in the middle, but chlorine is right here in the 17th column, so it has 7 valence electrons. So does fluorine and bromine and iodine. That's because they all share the same electron configuration for their valence electrons. 3s2, 3p5. 2s2, 2p5 for fluorine. 4s2, 4p5 for bromine, so they all have 7 valence electrons. So how many more electrons does chlorine have to get to 8? If it has 7, it needs 1 more electron. How do you show gain 1 electron? With a minus sign, okay? So it gained 1 electron, so chlorine's ion is Cl minus 1. Here's another one to try. What ion will magnesium form? Look at your periodic table. Magnesium is in the 2 column. Okay, so it has 2 valence electrons. Do you think it's going to gain 6 to be like argon, or is it going to give up 2 to be like neon? It's much easier, it's sheer numbers, it's much easier to give up 2 to be like neon. So how do you say give up 2 electrons? That would be 2 plus, right? So magnesium's ion is Mg2 plus. So that's how you figure out what ion it's going to form. Okay? So, again, write these on your periodic table. Pause the video right here and write down these columns. They can be generalized. This is what ion they will always form. Group 1 is always 1 plus, 2 is 2 plus, 13 is 3 plus, 15 is 3 minus, 16 2 minus, 17 1 minus. The other columns cannot be generalized, okay? And we'll talk about how you figure out their charge on those particular atoms. And then, of course, if you have a polyatomic ion like sulfate, you've memorized its charge, SO4 2 minus. So make sure you've memorized those polyatomic ions. All right. So we're still talking about when 2 ions come together to form a bond. Ions are only formed when the bonds are formed. There's no such thing as a chloride ion just floating around in space. Okay, the only time chlorine is going to have a -1 charge is when it's with something else, when it's given up, when it's gained its electron from something else. And the whole point of bonding is to become stable with 8 electrons. Chlorine wants to gain 1. Okay, so maybe there's another element out there that wants to give up 1, and they can bond and buddy up with each other and be happy together forever. Okay, that's what all the atoms want to do. So realize that an ionic bond, how its electrons act are the transfer of electrons. One atom gives up an electron and the other receives an electron. So let's take a look at an example. So sodium is unstable with 11 electrons, but what do we care about the most? We don't care about all its electrons, we only care about the one in its valence electron level. Okay, so you can see here it has 1 valence electron. That's what's making it unstable. Okay, if it were to give up that 1 electron, then it would become stable like neon, because look, poof, if you take away that 1 extra electron, look how many electrons you have in the outermost energy level now. You have 8, okay? So because it gave up that 1 electron, it takes on a positive charge. That 1 electron needs to be transferred to somewhere else. And that somebody else could be chlorine, who wants to gain an electron. So it's no mistake that one of the most common substances on Earth is sodium chloride. Sodium wants to give up an electron. Chlorine wants to gain an electron. They love each other, and they're going to buddy up all the time, okay, so that they can both have the stable electron configuration like neon. So let's look at that one more time, and I want you to think about this question while you're watching this quick little clip. Why are the atoms attracted to each other?
Atoms such as sodium may lose electrons and become positively charged ions. Other atoms such as chlorine may gain electrons and become negatively charged ions. Depending upon their surroundings, the opposite charged ions may attract each other, thus forming an ionic bond.
Okay, there you go. So you saw the electron get transferred. That is when the bond is formed because they have to work together. They have to be together. So let's answer that question. Why are the atoms attracted to each other? If sodium becomes positive and chlorine becomes negative, remember, opposites attract. They are going to be attracted to each other because of the positive and negative charge, their difference, okay? They want to be together. So remember, the way the atoms become stable, the whole point of this is to be like a noble gas. Are they turning into a noble gas? No, but they're becoming like a noble gas. So let's watch another quick video. Maybe this will help you a little more to understand what's going on.
To understand how ionic bonding works, it's helpful to look at argon, an unreactive gas and a member of the noble gas family. Its third energy level, or the valence shell, has an octet of electrons. Interestingly, two very reactive elements are found right next to argon, potassium and chlorine. Potassium has one electron in its highest energy level. Reactions of potassium involve the loss of this single valence electron, resulting in the formation of a potassium cation. Chlorine, on the other hand, has 7 electrons in its highest energy level. In many reactions of chlorine, an electron is acquired and a chloride anion is formed. Notice that both the potassium and the chloride ions have the electronic configuration of argon. In fact, potassium and chlorine react vigorously to form potassium chloride. The attraction between the potassium and chloride ions is called an ionic bond. In an ionic compound, each cation is attracted by several anions, which are in turn attracted by several cations. The result is a solid, regular array of positive and negative ions called a crystal lattice.
Okay, so you may remember this from earlier in the year. The crystal lattice is the interlocking mechanism of an ionic bond. Okay, you can see in the picture that every other one is a potassium and then a chlorine. Potassium, chlorine, potassium, chlorine. They're all attracted to each other. They're all locked into position. And so that's what gives ionic compounds their strength and why they are brittle. Okay, they break very easily and why they don't melt very easily. You have to heat salts up to thousands of degrees Celsius before they'll begin to melt. Okay, now comes the really fun part. Naming ionic compounds. I love naming. So, a formula unit is written for ionic compounds. That's what it's called. When you write the symbol for an ionic compound, it's called a formula unit because it's the lowest ratio. You don't basically say all of the numbers of atoms that are there. You say what's the ratio of them. So for instance, sodium chloride, for every one sodium, there's one chlorine. So that's why the formula is NaCl. It wouldn't be Na2Cl2 because that's not the lowest ratio. Okay, but contrast that to lead-2 chloride as it's known. Lead, there's one lead, but there's 2 chlorines for every one lead atom. Okay, so their lowest ratio is 1 to 2, and that's what the formula unit shows. Okay, you will hear me say this over and over and over again, and you will get so tired of hearing me say it. So help your friends to understand and remember. An ionic compound is a metal and a nonmetal, or a metal and a polyatomic ion. How do you know if it's a metal? The staircase on the periodic table. To the left are the metals. To the right are the nonmetals. Remember, look here. Okay? All of these are metals. All of these over here to the right of the staircase are nonmetals. So if you have one of these and one of these, it's an ionic compound. Or if you have a metal and one of the polyatomic ions that you have memorized, again, it comes up again. You must memorize your polyatomic ions. Then you have an ionic compound. Okay? So, when an ionic bond forms, the overall charge has to be 0. So when you're writing the formula unit for the compounds, you have to make sure that the charge balances out. So let's do a little bit of practice here on writing the chemical formulas. Okay? So, magnesium chloride. Magnesium has what charge, okay? Well, remember, if you think back to earlier, magnesium forms a 2 plus ion. Okay, it's in the 2 plus column. Chlorine, on the other hand, is in the 1 minus column. Again, I'm getting this from the periodic table. Okay, right here. Chlorine is in the 1 minus column. Magnesium is in the 2 plus column. You should have labeled those earlier when I told you to. If magnesium is 2 plus and chlorine is 1 minus, what do we need how many of each do you need to get the overall charge to be 0? So we have 2 positives. So if I add another chlorine, now we have 2 negatives. Okay, and you add them up. How many magnesiums? 1. How many chlorines? 2. So the formula is MgCl2. There's your answer. Okay, let's try it again. This right here, this Roman numeral tells you the charge on an atom. Okay, and the reason that it's there is because if you look at the periodic table, iron is right here. This is not a charge column. Okay, it's not one of the ones that can be always labeled. So iron 2 sulfide, the Roman numeral tells you that it's iron 2 plus. Sulfide, sulfur is in the 2 minus column. So look at these already cancel each other out. 2 positives, 2 negatives means that the overall formula is just FeS. We have 1 iron and 1 sulfur. That's their ratio. Remember, you're looking for the ratio. All right, the next one, tin 4 sulfate. Tin 4. Tin 4 would be SN4 plus, and sulfate is SO4 2 minus. So how many of each do you need? There's 4 positives and 2 negatives right now. So we need another sulfate, SO4 2 minus. So now look what we have. 1 tin, here it is, and how many sulfates? 2 of them. This is where it gets tricky. If you were to just write SO4 2, that says 42 oxygens and 1 sulfur and 1 tin. That's not what you want to say. You want to say 1 tin and 2 sulfate. So anytime you have a polyatomic ion and you're trying to say there's more than one of them, you have to put parentheses around it and you have to put the number outside of the parentheses, just like you see here. Okay? All right, the last one, strontium phosphate. Strontium is in the 2 plus column on the periodic table. Phosphate, you've memorized, is PO4 3 minus. So let's put this on a new clean piece of paper so that we can see it better. Strontium 2 plus, phosphate PO4 3 minus. Again, the whole goal is to get the charges to balance out. Right now we have 2 positives and 3 negatives. What do we need more of? We need more positives. So the only thing I can do is add another strontium. So now I have 4 positives and 3 negatives. Still doesn't work, but we need more negatives. The only thing I can do is add another phosphate. Is that even now? 4 positives, 6 negatives. Nope. But look, lo and behold, if I add another one of these, 2, 4, 6 positives, and 3 plus 3 makes 6 negatives. Now I have the balanced formula. 1, 2, 3 strontium, so SR3, and 1, 2 phosphates, so PO4. Remember, I want to say 2 of this entire thing. So since it's a polyatomic ion, I have to put it in parentheses. Okay? And there you go. There's your formula. Strontium phosphate is SR3, parentheses PO4, 2.